Hello, welcome back to the podcast. As you're listening to this, I have just gotten back from a retreat. I'm sure it's been amazing, life-changing, but in next week's episode, I will be sharing all. So definitely tune into that because last year, it was around the same time actually. I'll have to double check the dates, but I went on my first ever retreat to Mallorca, and that was a really important trip in my life, in my healing journey. I really feel like it was the catalyst to my spiritual journey. I was kind of already on it, but that one really sent me deeper. It was when the floodgates opened to me tapping into my emotions. I cried pretty much the entire trip. If you listened to the last episode, you would know that. And I feel just so much deeper in my connection with the universe now, and so much in my life has changed since then. So we shall see what is to come from the next year of this Cyprus retreat. But don't worry, I will share all of the insights and the wisdom and what I got up to because I actually don't know specifically what we're going to be doing. I just love the creators of the event. It's Megan Rose Lane, and she's collaborating with Rochelle Fox of Mindspo. Love both of them, and the fact that they're collaborating is a sign I'm meant to be there. But in today's episode, I'm sharing some mainstream health advice that I don't follow, and I'm just sharing today my own opinions, my own thoughts. So this is a disclaimer that what works for me might not work for you. There are unique situations and choices that might be different in your life. Um, and I will share as I go through maybe some of the exceptions to my rules. But I got here by experiencing not so great results from the conventional medical system. I grew up just following what was advised and just not really questioning anything. But then when I went through my health crisis and I was going to all of these doctors and specialists and practitioners, and I was being told things like, your diet doesn't impact your acne or your bloating. It doesn't matter what you're eating. Hormonal birth control is going to regulate your hormones. Eat less and exercise more if you want to lose weight. Just the standard crappy advice. And I knew intuitively, even though I wasn't in this world then, that that didn't resonate. It just didn't feel like truth for me. And then I just really started to question everything after that. What we're told from the media, the news, the government. I went I went deep into the rabbit holes of all of that and have come to my own opinions now. I'm open to them changing in future. But I've split these into some dietary things and some lifestyle things. And please work with your practitioner to find out what is best for you. If you want to work with me, I'll chat a little bit more at the end how we could do that. But let's start off with diet. The first one is to limit your red meat, or that red meat is inflammatory and can raise cholesterol and needs to be avoided. There's a big difference between red meat from a McDonald's or Burger King burger and a grass-fed steak or processed hot dogs in a tin versus grass-fed lamb burger. Same food, very different quality, and therefore very different effects on the body. Some people do better with more meat in their diet and more red meat. Some people have conditions like hemochromatosis or iron overload where they don't necessarily need to avoid iron-rich foods completely, but their body struggles to process the iron well, and it can cause a bit more inflammation when that iron level builds up. So just be mindful of your iron intake. But iron is so important for a number of different things. If you lean on the side of anemic and you're currently relying on iron supplements and iron medications to boost your levels, and you're still not eating red meat, you need to start there, unless this is for ethical not ethical reasons, religious reasons, because there is a way to eat animal products ethically. I care about the welfare of animals and I still choose to eat meat, and I put my money into farms and practices that raise the animals well and take care of them. That is important to me. Side note. But for the majority of people, in my opinion, having red meat as part of a healthy diet can be really, really healthy. And red meat contains a lot of other minerals like zinc, and some of these nutrients you can't really get from other foods. You can't get from plant foods, things like cholesterol. Cholesterol gets demonized, and another one of these things that I don't follow is to avoid saturated fat for the same reason. There is a big difference between saturated trans fats and saturated fat from poor quality animals and lard that comes from a pig grown on processed oils and processed food. There's a big difference between that and some saturated fat from butter or egg yolks. So with red meat, there is a resource from, I think it's Chris Kress's website. He did a huge podcast episode years ago now with a vegan doctor, and they did like a back and forth argument or debate as to whether animal products are bad for you. So on Kress's website, I'll link if it's still available, the guide that he put up, the article on his website that shares more about the evidence as to why red meat can be good for you for a lot of people. So I personally eat red meat probably 3 to 4 times a week. I think it can be overdone like any food. So these people on carnivore diet where they're having steak 3 times a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and they're also not eating fiber and they're getting nutrient deficient because they're not eating any other foods. The red meat then can still be demonized, but it's probably the other factors as well. So personally, around my menstrual cycle, I crave red meat. I love things like offal and chicken livers. I love a big juicy ribeye steak and a gluten-free burger when I'm out and about. So that is something that I personally don't limit in my diet. I just have an intuitive feeling when I've had enough. And there was a time a few years ago where I could have eaten it every single day for every single meal because I was so depleted. It's such a nourishing food and so rich in these minerals. But then my body just started telling me I don't need it as much. I stopped craving it as much. I focus more on chicken and eggs and fish instead of red meat. But if you're currently craving red meat, please listen to that. Your body is telling you there's something in there that it needs. I touched on the second one, which is saturated fat. This could also be overdone, and it doesn't mean that you put tablespoons of butter on every meal because fat is the richest in calories. If you're currently trying to lose weight, or even if you struggle with something like insulin resistance, you can overdo it with fat. So it's all about balance. And if you're doing high carb and high healthy fats, that can still contribute to insulin resistance, even though it's potato, sweet potato, white potato, and coconut oil or butter, just overdoing carbs and fats together, it can contribute to some metabolic issues. So if you're doing higher carbs in one meal, maybe have a bit less of the fat, doesn't have to be zero, and vice versa. But some of my favorite saturated fat sources are coconut oil and butter, egg yolks, the fat in red meat. I'll happily cook some chips in duck fat if it's good quality. And the breakdown of the fat is very different when it comes from a healthy animal. It's typically higher in omega-3, which are more anti-inflammatory when it's raised correctly and it eats grass if it's a cow instead of grains, and less high in omega-6, whereas conventionally raised animals tend to be higher in omega-6 because they feed them things like corn and grains, and they're not meant to eat that stuff. Third one is to limit your salt intake. There is also a difference between sodium chloride, white table spot salt that's found in processed foods, packaged foods, versus Celtic sea salt, which is rich in around 80 different minerals. It's how nature intended. And sodium chloride is the white table salt that's just been stripped and completely is void of all of these other supportive minerals because minerals work together. And is it the sodium or is it also the trans fats? Is it the refined sugars that's also in those foods that's contributing to heart disease and diabetes? So they say to avoid salt because of high blood pressure and high cholesterol and all of these things. But yeah, is it the inflammation coming from stress? Is it the inflammation coming from mineral deficiencies? There's so many factors that go into blood pressure and diabetes. Salt is one factor, and the majority of people that I test with HTMA mineral testing actually have low sodium levels. And I spoke to a lady the other day, and she said that she's been avoiding salt because she's had a history of high blood pressure, and she actually has low sodium. Her blood pressure was due to some other issues going on, and she had been craving salt, and I gave her the permission to eat more, and she was so happy. We actually put her on a supplement, an electrolyte supplement that has really high levels of salt in there, and she is loving it and is feeling so much better from doing that. There's a book called, it's something, I think it's just called Salt by, I should have prepared for this. James, we'll put it in the show notes, but it's a book all about the benefits of salt if you want to learn a little bit more. But I will liberally salt my food. I've got my salty electrolytes in my water bottle. Love the Element electrolyte ones, and the watermelon is my favorite flavor. Give them a try. Let me know if you like them. And last couple now on the diet front is the typical food pyramid, which is the bottom layer, just very high in carbohydrates and whole grains. And we're told to eat porridge for breakfast, and then this whole wheat sandwich for lunch, and then pasta for dinner. If I was to eat that many carbs, and especially grains, I just would be so inflamed and wouldn't feel great. Not that I avoid greens completely. I did for a while. Years ago when I was trying to heal my gut, I went paleo, so that cuts out dairy and grains and legumes and all sorts of things. And it helped. I probably could have kept some of the grains in. I do well now with white rice and quinoa. It can be considered a seed, but still under that category. Oats are a bit iffy for me just because of my gluten sensitivity. Oats can be cross-contaminated and cross-reactive in the body to gluten quite a lot. So if you have a gluten issue or celiac, even though oats are naturally gluten-free, they can still mimic gluten in the body. So I just choose to avoid them as much as possible. Although my mum did get me some gluten-free granola recently, cinnamon nutty granola, and it was amazing. So I ate that in like 3 days. I didn't really feel any different, but I just wouldn't have that on a regular basis. And the whole porridge for breakfast advice could work for some people. It's better than a bowl of cereal, but it is just a big bowl of carbs, and there should be some protein and healthy fats in there. And you can make it better, but when we see athletes eating these big bowls of oatmeal and porridge for breakfast, they have a ton of muscle on their frame. They are working out all day long. It's not someone who works a 9 to 5 sedentary job and is sat on their bum all day and has hardly any muscle and has metabolic syndrome. So we need to be more individual to the person and not just have these blanket statements. And most traditional or typical breakfast options here, at least for British people or Americans, is just very carb heavy. It's toast, it's pastries, it's porridge, and it could just be starting your day off on a blood sugar roller coaster. I do better. Some people do better with lower carb breakfast. I have my breakfast soup, chicken soup. I have some raw milk. I have a matcha latte. I have a protein bar. And then I kind of build upon my carbs as the day goes on. I have more around my workouts just to allow my body to use the carbs better. But if I'm going to be sat down working all afternoon with clients, I'm not going to eat a ton of carbs because then my body isn't going to use them as well. So I am flexible with it. I play around with it on days that I work out more, or I'm more active. Even around my menstrual cycle, I will change up my carbs a little bit. So it's find what works for you, but see how you feel. Have a lower carb breakfast and a higher carb dinner, and do the opposite and see how you feel for the rest of the day. I just want to take a quick pause to ask you a really important question. Where do you want your health to be in 6 months' time? More energized, feeling comfortable in your skin and body again, excited for life because you're finally starting to see improvements with your health, or frustrated and depressed because you're still struggling with symptoms, which are taking over your life and stopping you from living life to the full. If you want the first option, you're going to have to do something different. After all, the definition of insanity is doing the same things over again and expecting a different result. If you're DIYing your health, meaning trying to heal yourself through researching, trial and error, wasting a lot of money and time in the process, then you could be sabotaging your results. Would you try and fix your car if it broke and you didn't know what was wrong with it? No. So why are you trying to do it all alone when it comes to the most important thing that we have in our life, our health? Trust me, actually asking for help and investing in yourself saves you time, money, and a lot of stress in the long run. I know you're probably not getting any answers or support from your doctor. I've been there too. That's why I created my 6 month signature hormone reset package. This one-to-one coaching package offers the highest level of support and transformation as we'd be closely working together to identify and address the underlying root causes of your health issues. Even if you're already eating healthy and taking supplements, there's so much more to healing, so don't feel like you've tried it all. Let me help you figure out what's causing your stubborn symptoms and support your body in healing naturally, which, in case no one has ever told you, is completely possible. Check out my website, which is linked in the episode show notes for more information, and the links to apply or book an enrollment call are there if you want to chat further. If you've been looking for a sign, this is it. Final one on the diet front is that sweeteners are better than regular sugar. We're told that artificial sweeteners in diet drinks, they are the preferred option, but they're actually not that great. And in some cases, I would rather someone have the regular full fat Coke than a diet Coke because these sweeteners, they might not increase our blood sugar massively, but they are still having an effect on our metabolism, on our gut bacteria, on our brain. So it's just about moving away from that sweetness anyway. We're so obsessed with sugar and sweetness, and it depends. If you're using natural sweeteners, that's a little bit different. I would rather you use maple syrup and honey and coconut sugar than refined sugar. But if you're really reliant on sugar all the time, maybe ask yourself, why do I need to have that teaspoon of honey in every single drink that I'm having, or the Diet Coke 3 times a day? As a treat, it's fine. I went out the other day and had a Diet Coke. I actually had a headache the next day. I was laughing with my client before because I told her all of the supplements and things that I took the next day just to help my body process the Diet Coke. But sometimes, yeah, we want a little fun drink and that's fine. But if it's a daily thing and you feel like you're addicted to sugar or it's just on your mind constantly, then maybe you need to work on your metabolic health a little bit more. But the push to get people more on these sweeteners and the coffees and the drinks and having the diet soda than the regular one, it's kind of like they're okay and they're better, but they're not. They're just another version of something that's not great for you, and maybe they don't affect your blood sugar as much, but it's still not ideal, if you ask me. So onto lifestyle. I had to I have to be mindful what I say on this section. Um, this is not medical advice. This is my own opinion and perspective and my own choices. But things like the jabs, especially the yearly flu jabs that are just rolled out and promoted all the time. I personally don't get them and don't feel the need to. I support my immune system through my diet and my lifestyle and supplements. The majority of people who get these flu jabs end up getting the flu anyway, so they don't really work. They're just guessing what the strain of virus is going to be every winter, and it might not even be that accurate. So that whole category is just something that I am very mindful of and personally don't partake in. But my some of my videos have been taken down for me talking more about that. So I'll leave it here. Next one is the use of fluoride. Some of it is unavoidable because we just get trace amounts through our food or some products, but actively me choosing to use fluoride is just a no because it can calcify the pineal gland, it can affect iodine absorption in the body and therefore affect your thyroid function. If you're living in a place that has fluoridated tap water, consider getting a fluoride filter. It's good here in the UK. There's not many places that do have fluoridated water. My area doesn't, but I also just filter my tap water anyway. But with dentists, they really push you to use fluoride toothpaste. And I'm not a dentist, so please speak to your own. But there are better alternatives that have less or no negative health consequences, like an ingredient called hydroxyapatite that you can use in toothpaste that is even better than fluoride, in my opinion, at helping to remineralize the teeth without causing any toxicity to the thyroid or the body or even the gut bacteria. These things can deplete the good bacteria in the gut as well. So we want to protect our thyroid. We want to make sure we're absorbing iodine. These halogens like fluoride and chlorine can displace iodine, and that's really important for a lot of women's health symptoms and fertility and a million things. So that is something that I don't use. I like the toothpaste by Risewell, Gutology, and Dimples are three good brands. Next is we're told to avoid the sun. I am like a lizard. The weather being gorgeous here in the UK recently has just changed the year, changed my life. And I'm just outside as much as humanly possible. I take my laptop outside to work out there, and it's just undeniable the difference that you can feel just from getting some sun on your skin. You don't have to be someone who lies out and bakes if you don't feel well doing that. Some people just don't enjoy that, but that's not to say that the sun isn't good for you. You can still do it in moderation. If you have a history of things like skin cancer or you're high risk for that, there's no doubt that the sun can be linked when you're burning excessively and you have high levels of inflammation in the system. So try not to burn, but to say that we should all wear sunscreen, factor 50 all year round and be scared of the sun is just ridiculous. The sun is one of the most healing things that we have access to. It doesn't just provide us with vitamin D, it provides us with so many different important antioxidants, and the even things like vitamin D can be anti-cancerous. So if we're trying to avoid the sun to reduce our skin cancer risk, we actually have the highest rates of skin cancer ever, and we're the most sun safe that we've ever been. So just doesn't add up. And some of the ingredients in conventional sunscreens have potentially cancer causing ingredients in there. So using clean products and the more mineral based sunscreens when you can, if you are out for longer periods of time or you have very fair skin that burns easily, we don't want to be silly with it, but please get sun to whatever level that you can handle and know that it is so supportive for your health. And then last but not least is opting for medication as the first go-to for everything. I personally try to avoid medication as much as possible. There's a time and a place for it. I used to be very against pharmaceuticals, and now I'm more in between. I'll take them if necessary. If I have in the past had very high histamine levels and I've had bug bites, and that's really triggered my immune system and I feel just really itchy, then I will have an antihistamine just to help me sleep and get through the night and have it wear off. But to promote things like hormonal birth control as a way to regulate a woman's cycle is ridiculous. It's shutting down the female's reproductive cycle and ovulation, and that's why it is effective against you stopping falling pregnant, but it's causing so many more issues as well, and they don't tell you about the laundry list of side effects and symptoms, short term and long term, that can come from taking these pills. And a lot of women now just stay on hormonal birth control their entire adulthood, or they start and stop around pregnancies, and then into the 50s and 60s, they're straight into hormone replacement therapy, and they've never got to experience their own body's cycles and health that way. With painkillers, if in the past I've had an infected wisdom tooth and it was one of the worst pains I've ever experienced, I, for the first day or so, took painkillers, ibuprofen, paracetamol, because it was to the level that my regular supplements weren't touching it. Then I actually started homeopathy, and that gave me even more relief without all of the harmful effects. I have a podcast episode on that, by the way. If you search Wisdom Tooth on the Viva Natural Health podcast, you'll find it. But back in the day, I would just go straight to medication when something was up. I wouldn't think twice about my use of antibiotics. I wouldn't consider the side effects for these different things. So I'm really glad that I've learned that early on in my life, that they do come with risk. We can use them if necessary, but I prefer to try natural things first. I try to figure out why I have the headache. Can I drink some water? Can I have a snack? Can I have some electrolytes? Can I just come off my screens for a bit and try to sleep it off? But then if it's not going and I've taken my supplements and I've tried everything, if that headache is still there and it's really getting to me, I will take a painkiller, but I'm not just popping it in advance. People take painkillers in advance because they think they're going to get backache or they think they're going to get period pain. So really looking deeper at the root causes. Why is this happening in the first place? Otherwise, we can end up on these prescription medications, and by the time we're 30, 40, 50 years old, we're on multiple different medications, and some of them could easily be avoided. So I hope you enjoyed that episode. Bit controversial, maybe some of them. I would love to have more on here, but I will stop myself. If you had any that you would add or you disagree with, you agree with, I would love to know. And if you're needing help with your own health and figuring out what works best for you based on your health goals, your lab results, just like I've done, then my signature one-to-one coaching program, Hormone Reset, is a perfect fit. It would be great for you. There is no one size fits all here. And what works for you now might not also work for you in 6 months or 6 years' time. So don't get hung up on, I follow this diet or I do this. I'm very open-minded, and what I've shared today might shift in the future. I might be a carb-heavy vegan who avoids the sun. Probably not, but I am open to changing my mind, and I will come on here and share that if so. But for now, these are my truths. One of my main goals with clients is to also teach them how to take care of themselves and what to look for, how to troubleshoot when things come up, so that you don't need a coach like me forever. But in the short term, I can really help you to understand what is going to work for you right now, how to know based on your body's signals and feedback what types of food work best. So if you're interested in that, there is a link in the episode show notes for more information, to go to the webpage, see what's included, and an application form or a booking link to book a free 30-minute enrollment call if you want to chat further. No obligation, let's just chat about your situation, what you want to work on, and see if it's a good fit for us to work together. I would love to help you. Enjoy your week, whatever you're up to, and I will see you on the next episode. Thanks for listening.